I was viewed as unseemly by the conservative establishment because the conservative way of doing things, it's not to go set up a card table.
No,
it was,
definitely not.
It was to speak properly and to go to Stanford and to get the highest possible education. And what I was unknowingly on the cutting edge of was something you mentioned earlier, is that conservatives have now become low trust of institutions and liberals have become high trust of institutions. Whereas liberals are the ones that will defend the FDA and they'll defend the CDC and they'll defend Pfizer and they'll defend the intelligence.
That's defending Pfizer. That's really.
But they will. Yeah. Because they're high trust of institutions.
Because there's no one more trustworthy from a leftist perspective than big pharma.
But they find themselves defending institutions. In the 1960s, they were low trust of institutions. Don't send us to war. You know, whereas today, actually, and I was on the cutting edge of this, was in 2012, 2013, 14, conservatives were still on the high trust of institutions.
Okay, so let me rephrase that slightly.
Please,
because
but you understand what I'm trying to communicate.
I do. Well, there's a real conundrum there because a conservative with low trust in institutions is like an oxymoron, right? Well, but
we're trying to conserve something institutions have destroyed.
Well, okay, that's the thing. So imagine that there's a hierarchy of institution. There's the fringe of the institution that's pretty exploratory. You can move into the center that's more conservative. Then you can move right to the bottom, which is, well, what? Well, I would say it's religious. Fundamentally, like as you move towards the core,
that's right.
You move towards what's more religious. And so the conservative stance isn't anti-institution. It's a stance that notes that, I know what's happened. You know, in the story of Moses, when Moses goes off to get the commandments, so he's the pipeline to God, right? He leaves his brother in charge, Aaron.
They have a rave party.
That's exactly right. They make this golden calf, which is a materialistic object, and they dance naked in the streets and have an orgy. And that's what happens to the political when it's detached from the sacred, when it loses
that's exactly
that.
Right.
Okay, so it isn't that the conservatives have become skeptical of institutions. It's that the conservatives have noted that the institutions no longer serve the purpose for which they were established.
Chartered.
Right. Chartered, exactly. And they're objecting, and that's happening everywhere. And that's part of this radical secularization.
Yes.
It's not just secularization, because there should be a separation between church and state, let's say. It's not that the institutions have become secular. It's that they've turned 180 degrees from their original orientation and are now rampaging as madly as possible in the other direction. So the universities are no longer the fortress walls against the barbarians. They're actually the voice of the barbarians, right? Hence the pro-Hamas demonstrations on campus.
Or the Black Lives Matter stuff, or the transgender stuff. That's very well said.
Exactly. Okay, so but we got to get that terminology exactly right, because it's very dangerous for conservatives to conceptualize themselves as anti-institutional, because then they become indistinguishable from the radicals.
Sure.
So it isn't that. It's a return to the sorts of things we talked about at the beginning, like Wilberforce and those foundational principles.
Yes.
And you're going to campuses saying, you people have lost the plot.
Exactly.
Right, which they definitely have. Like there's the universities. I cannot see, I've been working in various ways to figure out how to revitalize the universities, and the bricks and mortar universities. Like, how do you revitalize an institution that's dominated by people who are aiming in the wrong direction?
They're irredeemable.
So what does that mean? Okay, so let's continue practically here. So tell me what happens the first time at Wisconsin.
Conversation every 15 minutes. A couple kids were interested, found a chapter leader.
You found a chapter.
Yeah,
so that was success.
So it was a success. We found a couple groups of people and we started the group. And then I did it at Marquette University because I had a friend that went there.
And so you walked away from that. How did you feel when you
Exhilarated.
You did?
Because then I was able to go back to 2 or 3 people giving us money.
And say?
And they gave us $500. I said, now we have a chapter. We can, and they said, okay, well, let us know how it goes. Proof of concept.
Right.
And so then we did it at Marquette, and we did it at University of Illinois, and we did it at Indiana.
So you went from 0 to 1, which is a huge leap.
It was a huge lift.
It's a huge leap.
Because getting that second chapter was so much easier than ex nihilo.
Of course. 0 to 1 is, the first customer is impossible. And then the second one's hard.
It was one of the most fulfilling days in Turning Point USA history.
Right, okay.
Was being able to get a singular chapter.
Right, of course, because that's the one that's most unlikely.
Exactly.
Your first sale is by far the most unlikely.
Exactly.
Right, okay, so then you went to Marquette.
in Marquette.
Okay, and what happened
Very
there?
similar situation, but it was also a friend of somebody in high school, and they were a private school, so it was a little harder to do the typical outreach, but they applied for a permit in like the student center, and same sort of thing.
So you were permitted from the beginning as well?
Well, in UW-Madison, they don't care as much because it was a public school, so you can kind of, any individual can walk on campus and kind of.
Right, okay.
But Marquette, I had a friend that I went to high school with. They said, yeah, I'll apply for something for you.
Okay.
And similar sort of thing. And they said, I sat there for 5 hours, Jordan. I would sit there for 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah.
Because that was time well spent. Because for me, I was trying to build the semblance of something, a real infrastructure, a real organization. And boy, was it difficult.
Yeah,
But it was never disheartening though. Because I had nothing to lose. You have to understand, I'm an 18, 19-year-old kid.
Right.
It's not like I'm mortgaging the house. It's not like I have two kids.
Yeah.
So there's such low downside and unlimited
Right,
upside.
sure. Well, that's the entrepreneurial niche.
And
right?
it was such an adventure because it's a campus I've never been to, talking to a bunch of kids. It's, you're almost having verbal combat, which is very entertaining.
Well, and I imagine too that it must have been heartening to you as well to see that you could hold your own.
Exactly. And so that's a really important point. Here I am as a kid that didn't go to college thinking, do I really have the intellectual capacity to joust with kids that are learning all day long?
Yeah,
I
right.
realized they're not learning all day long.
Yeah.
You see, I was reading von Mises and Rothbard before I came across you.
Yeah.
Hayek, Milton Friedman. Very libertarian economics was my baseline foundational philosophy. A lot of reasons for that. Very, very interesting. Tons of profound insights, some of which don't, I think, actually play out very well in the material world. But so I would encounter kids on campuses who professed to be studying economics, for example, and they didn't know very much.
Right.
And I realized, I said, well, there's a disconnect. They're borrowing money to go learn about things that I actually have a greater mastery of because I was...
Well, you can learn a lot if you read the right books.
Oh, and in my idle time, I became obsessed with being proficient and understanding economics. That was kind of my entry.
Oh, yeah, I see.
And so you have to remember, 2013...
You know that burning bush story?
Oh, yeah.
That's Moses' entry point, by the way. So the burning bush
Exodus
moment...
3, I think,
the burning bush moment happens when Moses goes off the beaten path. He's a shepherd, right? So a good man, keeps the wolves and lions at bay, serves the vulnerable. He's got that mastered. And then something attracts his attention, and he takes it seriously. And that's what transforms him. So you said you did that with economics.
Yeah,
right?
and Moses said, Hanani, here I am. Yeah, at that moment of the call of God.
Right, exactly. And so this is...
It's a repeated theme throughout the scriptures, Hanani, yes.
Well, Hanani.
Which is, here I am. So you remember in the Moses...
Right, so he's making himself available.
But remember, Abraham said that with the binding of Isaac when God
it's the same phrase.
Here I am. And the call of Samuel, here I am, for example. So that phrase, here I am, Hanani, is repeated about 7 times throughout the Old Testament.
And how do you spell it?
Hanani, I don't know how to spell Hebrew, but it's here I am. It's in the English translation.
Right. So it's like, take me, use me, I'm available for this assignment.
Mold me. I am your obedient vessel.
Right. That's like the Mission Impossible motif. Your assignment, if you choose to accept it.
Exactly. But it's a very powerful...
Then it burns.
It's a very powerful Hebrew word. It's basically, here I am. My arms are out. I am yours. Full surrender to your purpose.
Well, that's it. So, there's a pattern that's established in that burning bush story, because the burning bush is something living.
Yes.
That's
but it doesn't
intense.
consume it, which is what's so amazing.
Well, that's life. Life metabolizes, life burns, but without being consumed. That's the secret of life, right? So that the burning bush is life most deeply apprehended. And Moses is being a shepherd. He's near Mount Sinai or Horeb, which is where heaven meets earth, and something attracts his attention. And then what happens to Moses is that he takes it seriously and he gets to the bottom of it, and that transforms him. So the idea is something like, if you watch for adventure and opportunity, if you watch for the pathway forward, something will grip your attention and it'll compel you. You'll be obsessed by it. Well, you take that obsession seriously, you get to the bottom of things.
That's what it was.
That transforms you. Okay, so you were doing that with economics.
And it's funny, as I went to the bottom of it, it actually brought me back to my Christian upbringing and my roots.
Which is, well, that's what happens to Moses, because when he gets to the bottom of things, it's the voice of the spirit of his ancestors, right? It's
because
the voice
eventually
of God.
I was reading Hayek, Road to Serfdom.
Yeah.
And I had kind of an aha moment. I said, there's a lot of good and evil claims in this book?
Right.
By what standard are they saying something is good?
Right, exactly.
So
yes.
it brought me back to my Christianity, because the road to serfdom, it's all about the idea of how government tyranny will swallow society, will envelop it, but it happens in steps. And I said, time out. There's truth claims being made embedded in this. By what standard do we consider this?
How did you figure that out?
I might have watched one of your videos. I mean, to be honest, I don't know. I do remember, though, think to myself, libertarian economics is not enough. I want to go deeper.
Yeah. Look, I made exactly the same conclusion when I was studying political science in university. The first year or two was okay because we were reading great ancient thinkers. But then in my third and fourth years, when it started to become more specialized, the basic claim was that human beings are motivated economically, and then it became left. And I thought, no, that's not right. That's not right.
Correct.
There's a foundational.
There's a substructure.
That's why I started studying psychology.
And so that's where I started to take, and I take my faith very seriously. I love your biblical series, your Exodus series, and your gospel series is terrific. You deserve a lot of credit for that. And it's been phenomenal.
Daily Wire types deserve a lot of credit for that too, because they took a big risk.
Yeah, but you had the initiative to bring everybody together, and you did a great job with it. And you presented it in a way that I'd never have, because you have a very unique psychological understanding and interpretation of the scriptures.
Yeah, well, we had great panelists too. Like, they were a very good crowd, the people that decided
phenomenal.
to participate. It was really good.
What ended up happening is, as I started to pursue the scriptures more and take it seriously, remember back to our timeline, simultaneously the woke stuff all of a sudden reared its head, which is a manifestation of the spiritual.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
almost, I was in this place in 2018, 2019, when it was almost peak woke. We weren't there yet. 2020 was peak woke, where I was starting to understand what was really going on here, that this was a manifestation of a spiritual struggle.
Yeah.
It's
foundational. Well, the postmodernists made that claim, and so did the Marxists. It's like, no, we're going all the way to the bottom uprooting everything.
They want to go back to what happened in the garden. Did God really say that? Is that really what God says? To question, debase, and to challenge every truism of the West. I mean, you taught me that.
That's the sin of Eve.
Exactly.
Right? You can take the right to establish the moral order to yourself. It's the one thing that's claimed. There's many axiomatic claims in Genesis, in the openings of Genesis, right? That the word is the creative force that brings good out of chaos and possibility, that human beings are made in the image of God, that men and women exist as independent entities, and that they each, and that you're not to take the right to establish the moral order to yourself. It's the one prohibition. And I think biologically, it's something like, fundamentally, you have to adapt yourself to the realities of the world, right? You don't have the wherewithal. This is where Nietzsche went spectacularly wrong, because Nietzsche said, after his pronouncement that God had died, that human beings would have to create their own values.
Which he said with lament.
He did.
Which people must remember.
But then he felt that creating our own values was the pathway out, and it's not. The pathway out is a return to the foundational values, right? And the more intense the crisis, the more toward the middle of the foundation you have to look. So it's not political, because this isn't a political crisis. It's truly the, what would you say? It's the ragged edge of the anti-Christian revolution. That's what it is.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
but the hopeful part, to kind of bring this all home, is that we are seeing young men especially want to return to our roots.
Yeah.
They want to, so that goes back to the conservative element. What are we conserving? In some ways, we're actually trying to rebirth. We're trying to have a new birth of freedom, as Abraham Lincoln would say.
Freedom and responsibility.
Yes, because you can't have one without the other.
No, and probably the right emphasis is responsibility. Remember, when God tells Moses to stand up against the Pharaoh, what he says, he doesn't say, tell them, let my people go. That's what the civil rights crusaders focused on. That isn't what he said. He said, let my people go so they may worship me in the wilderness. So it's ordered freedom.
Yes.
And ordered freedom is voluntary responsibility. And you see what you're seeing, and then let's close with this, because I want your insights into this. What you're seeing when those working class men are coming to your talks, and they've become more and more popular, as you said, as you've advertised them, is they're looking for, it seems, they're looking for responsible direction.
Correct.
Okay, so now tell me how you've had to modify the manner in which you're conducting these debates, let's say, because for a while you would have been testing yourself to see if you could hold your own, and that's kind of an intellectual battle. Shapiro did it very much the same thing.
He deserves a lot of credit for
that.
Yes, correct.
Right? Too bad Milo fell off the edge of the world, but he had a pretty rough go of it.
He had a lot of talent, though.
He did, and a lot of trauma, a lot. So, okay, so first of all, it's combat, and you're trying to develop yourself, and then you're doing that quite successfully and educating yourself along the way. But then you see this shift.
Yeah.
So what sort of shift has there been in your self-conceptualization and your understanding of your mission and the way that you conduct yourself? Like, you see you're being called upon to be a leader, let's say, that's not merely political. And that's why my understanding of it.
Correct. It's an enormous responsibility. Enormous. I mean, when I show up to college campus after college campus, mind you, during the day, they have got a million other things they could be doing. This is 12 p.m. lunchtime, and 4,000 people are waiting for me to go debate.
And what are they on? They're on the campus grounds? Where?
Yeah, sometimes amphitheaters. They're out there in trees. They're everywhere. I mean, you could see these images. We can supply them to you if you want to.
Yeah, we do that.
You could superimpose them over this discussion.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
And I'm not making this up. I'm not exaggerating. I mean, they're as far as the eye can see, these crowds are there. And part of it, we must be honest, is they want to see a good verbal combat because they don't get it at the university. You see,
right.
They're not. There's something
that's partly likely part of the pathological feminization.
Yes, without
no competition.
But you think about it. What I am doing is hyper masculine, which is no rules except, hey, we're just going to go basically figure this out. This is the closest thing to a verbal street fight that one can have.
Right.
Anyone can show up to the mic, prove me wrong. I have no notes. I have no AI. I have nothing. Tell me why you're correct. For 3 hours, I will sit there and everyone will watch. It's a gladiatorial match for the best ideas of the West.
Right.
And there's something there that is remarkably alluring. But for me, I also need to balance, as Christ would say, being as much truth, which of course I'm inclined towards, as love. So a lot of these kids are struggling.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Well, and even that guy that you just talked to, and maybe we'll throw this. So he was radically anti-Semitic, but also he said he had served. He looked to me like someone who'd been very, very hurt.
Yes.
He's fallen to this sort of snake pit of conspiratorial theories. And
the brain rot that comes with it.
Yeah. But you could also see that he would be very happy, and he did listen to you to the degree that he could, because he had tilted pretty hard towards paranoia. And that's very difficult to escape from once it's established. But he was trying to listen to you. And I thought you did a very good job of not playing easy tricks on him. Like, because he was an easy person just to throw into the eternal fire, so to speak.
Correct.
Right? But there was part of him that was trying to find the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's 5 years ago, I probably would have just thrown him to the wolves.
Right.
So now I look at myself as a father of 2 kids, 31 years old. So I'm no longer a colleague of these college kids. I'm not quite a professor, but I have a little bit more wisdom, a little bit more life experience. So I'm trying to be more tender when I see someone that is not overly aggressive. Now, if someone comes and they say, you're the worst person ever, they start insulting me, I'll kind of meet them at their own frequency to try to just make an example out of them. However, that one guy could see that's a very deeply hurt individual.
Very, yeah.
And so is that a type of guy that I want to just make fun of? I tried to say, hey, can I have a loving conversation with this person? And it's tough, man. It's tough because those are unloving ideas that he was espousing.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, that's that issue of trying to love your enemy. Okay, so maybe we'll close with this, a little investigation into what that means.